10 minutes before 11 o'clock. There was a story yesterday in the news about the first responders up in Gainesville at the university. They posted a selfie of themselves getting ready to go out and help people affected by Hurricane Irma. Mm-hmm. And these are three good-looking guys. So because they're good-looking guys, they had like 300,000 shares and millions of young ladies saying, "Come and arrest me," and that kind of stuff, right?
Yes.
Our next guest could have been one of them. This is a good-looking guy. Look at this. Have you seen this picture?
Yes, I have.
Wow. Okay.
He is a good-looking fellow.
We'll just let him believe I'm as good-looking, okay? just don't let him believe he's got one up on me, if you don't mind. He can't hear us, I don't think. No, I think he can. Soman Chainani is... I'm messing up his name. Soman Chainani is who I'm talking about. Oh my gosh, this guy is he's got a following, and I can tell already by looking at this. He's got a series of books called the School for Good and Evil, and it looks like, I think my notes are telling me that it'll be made into a movie. He is an award-winning screenwriter, so that would only make sense, and a filmmaker, and he's on to talk to us about this. I tried to put the picture on the streaming thing. There it is. Oh, I got it. Okay, I got one of them anyway.
There we go.
One of these covers. Soman Chainani, good morning, sir. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for having me.
How can you be a screenwriter? You should be the actor. Do you ever act in your own movies?
No, absolutely not. I'm really bad in front of the camera.
Look at
I've been bad in front of the camera since I was a kid. Oh God!
Just take
I don't know. I think I've.
Just take an acting lesson.
I think my brain is more valuable.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, well,
maybe.
Yeah, well, look at what like Adam Sandler. He's a smart guy, and but you're a good-looking guy. You're a good-looking
Can't
smart.
act, but yet he's made a career.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, that's not what I was saying. That's not what I was saying. So, well, thank you for being on the air with us today. Tell me about the School for Good and Evil, what's the newest edition called? What's the subtitle?
So the new one comes out on Tuesday, and It's called Quest for Glory. It's the fourth book in the series. And so the way the series works is it's divided into trilogies. The first trilogy is called The School Years, kind of set at the School for Good and Evil. It's kind of a Harry Potter-esque, journey into the inner workings of this school. And then books 4, 5, 6 are called the Camelot Years, which are going to be more like Game of Thrones, where you see these rivalries between kingdoms and court romance and things like that. But the whole series is meant to be kind of the anti-Disney fairy tale, where I grew up watching Disney movies like obsessively, and what you start to realize is they're selling you this myth of the happily ever after and the princess being saved by the prince and these stereotypes.
Don't tell me that. No.
I know, but what's so sad about the whole thing is that they took stories written by the Grimm's brothers hundreds of years earlier and changed the ending, so that often you had stories that were quite sad in the original fairy tales that Disney just would change an ending and make it happy, which invalidated the whole lesson. So,
that's a really good...
My point was to try to bring it back.
That's a good point. Well, the good news is, give it about 300 years, and there'll be another Disney kind of guy making yours into... They'll be taking your stories and changing them.
Let's hope. One can only hope that something these days lasts that long.
So how does this? I'm not sure if I understand. These are books, right?
Yeah, these are books.
Okay.
And this is going to be the fourth one, and then Universal has the movie rights.
Oh, I got you. Okay. And so the following you have, I mean, you're getting all kinds of great reviews on here, and I'm sure I'm not telling you anything, but this new one comes out on the 19th, right?
Mm-hmm. Comes out on Tuesday all over the place, and so I'll be on tour, around the country for the next month, just seeing kids in schools all over the U.S.
And are these books illustrated?
Yeah, each chapter has it's like Potter in that each chapter has its own little opening illustration, and there's some cool full color stuff in some of the books. But ultimately, because we knew a lot of kids don't like to read these days, and we wanted to get them hooked into the series, so we created this companion book called the Ever Never Handbook, which is a full-color graphic version of the series. So we often give that to kids who don't like to read, and then we find them reading the book soon after, once they read that one.
So when you have a series like this, and you have characters that you've created, does the character's fate sometimes change based on the feedback from the readership?
Not really, because I think, I hear what they have to say. I hear who their favorite characters are, but I have my own kind of agenda, I think. So often, like, I'm seeing the story in a much bigger way than they are. So usually what I have planned doesn't really dovetail with what they think is going to happen or necessarily what they want, you know?
Yeah.
So
What do you think? I mean, do you think that's better? Let's say, for example, a character dies and they are like, oh my gosh, don't kill that character. It's too late by the time you've done it, right? I mean...
it is too late. It is indeed too late. And I think, you know, the thing with killing characters is it's never done lightly. And often I don't even know it's going to happen until I write it. I think it's more about, for me, you know, a character has a certain life and they outlive their purpose. And if you keep them around too long, it's obvious. Like, you know, I'm a big Game of Thrones fan, and I just felt like, you know, there were a few characters that, like, they just kept around, and you're just waiting for them to die, and when they finally die, you're like, oh, okay, finally. So, you know, you don't want that feeling either.
And your books, like you said in the beginning, are not Disney-esque because the fairy tales of decades ago, some of them did not have good endings.
That's what he was saying earlier.
Right, exactly. Like, yeah, like a lot of the Grimm stories had, like, you look at The Little Mermaid. Little Mermaid is a cautionary tale when Hans Christian Andersen wrote it. And she dies quite miserable at the end. She kills herself. Mm-hmm. And then you look at the Disney story, the exact same story, and at the end, she gets her prince for the same choices.
Yeah, singing songs, yeah.
Yeah. So, like, it turned it into this funny musical, which is weird because the original story is a tragedy. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. You look at that and you just think, okay, no wonder kids grow up crazy.
So when the movie people came to you, were you kind of reluctant because they could easily have done that to you?
Yeah, but the condition was I got to write the script.
Gotcha.
So
yeah.
You know, that was the difference.
Well, that is really cool. You're a superstar. It's such an honor to have you on the show. So what do we do? I found it on Amazon. Do you have a website you can recommend?
Yeah, schoolforgoodandevil.com gives you the option to get all the different editions, because a lot of the bookstores have their own specific edition. Like Barnes & Noble has one with a full-color pull-out poster. Target has one with these kind of secret letters. So, you know, you can go on there and see which one you want to get, and then that website itself has a great sort of landing spot for anyone who wants to explore the series. We have a YouTube channel. There's forums where kids can interact with each other. There's a test to see if you're good or evil. So that website plus my Instagram and my Twitter tend to have everything involved with the series.
I do know I've never quite understood, and I hope you don't mind me bringing this into the conversation, but I'm not a Bible scholar. I'm not a Bible scholar, but what I remember was that there was in Genesis, the whole apple thing or the fruit thing was that God said, "Don't eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil." Right? Wasn't that the thing? And I often thought, I wonder why God didn't want us to know the difference between good and evil. It makes sense that we should know that. So, I mean, you've created a whole school to go to learn the difference.
Well, I think. But it's interesting because I think the idea being that, like, once you assign labels to it, and this is part of the theme of the book, once you assign labels to it, you really get yourself in trouble because, you know, once you start saying this is good, this is evil, if you don't know, A, how it's going to end, and B, what the intention is behind it, you often are labeling things the wrong way. And so, you know, what I'm trying to get kids to do is not think in those terms necessarily. So I don't find a conflict in that series at all. In that story at all. I think the way I interpret it is this idea of don't label. Once you eat from that tree, you're going to start to think of things in terms of good and evil, and then you're in real trouble.
Well,
you know?
This is my thought with all of the books that might have some parents, you know, wondering if the kids should read them. Reading is never going to be a bad thing. Well, there might be some exceptions to that, but a storyline like this seems like a really good idea. Just good, entertaining reading is what I think.
Yeah, and I think it forces kids to see the world in a different kind of way, to open their mind a little and ask the questions they need to ask in order to make it in today's world where good and evil often look exactly the same, you know. So
all right, Soman Chainani, thank you so much for being on the air with us today, and definitely come back.
Thanks so much for having me.
You're welcome. We will be right back.
TV footage, police have identified someone that they believe to have been the person who left that improvised explosive device on this District Line train here at Parsons Green.
Mark White with Fox Sister Network Sky News. President Trump telling reporters the attack is a terrible thing.
This keeps going and going. And we have to be very smart. We have to be very, very tough.
Speaking at the